In Full Zoom is presented by Calvo Enterprises, Inc. and IT&E.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to another edition of In Full Zoom. I'm Nestor Licanto, and pleased to welcome our guest this week. She's Lasia Casil, who is the director of the Hagatna Restoration and Redevelopment Authority, and she's going to talk a little bit about the plan that they've submitted to the legislature. Half a day, Lasia.
Half a day, Nestor. Thank you for having me on here today. It's a pleasure
pleasure to have you. So as I mentioned, you've submitted a new kind of a master plan to the legislature. Tell us a little bit about the process and where it is right now.
Sure. Yes, this is it's been a long time coming. We've been working really hard on this for the past couple of years. This was actually put out, and a law was created in 1997 to develop a master plan. So it's 25 years in the making, and we're finally coming to some sort of fruition. The HR Board of Commissioners spent the past 2.5 years reviewing all the submissions from all the agencies, the community stakeholders from Guam, and they approved the master plan in July, and they submitted it to the governor for her review, and she took her time going through it with her team, and they finally approved it in December, and we submitted it to the legislature in January for their review and approval.
Okay, and so it's got to go through the legislative approval process, and I imagine that there will be a public hearing at least, and I don't know if there will be any additional public hearings besides the one.
Yes, I'm aware of one public hearing. It's been rescheduled to, I believe, next week. The notice will go out. But it's important to know that there are several components to this master plan. And the portion that we've submitted to the legislature and the governor for their review and approval, it's just the rules and regulations and the policies moving forward, which is very important. Because that will determine, the continuity of any projects that come up, the design guidelines, the map atlas, which creates the baseline and has all the information, the current information and facts about Hagatna.
Okay, before we get into some the highlights of the plan, tell us a little bit more about the history of this. I know that it's been around for quite some time, as you mentioned. I think it was 1997, you said. Talk about that process and how we've gotten to where we are now. Tell us a little bit about the history.
Sure. I believe it was in 1996, 95, there was actually a nonprofit organization when a bunch of the business leaders from Hagatna came together, and they said, Hagatna was, a thriving, vibrant city. Prior to the war, it was the capital. There were over 10,000 residents in Hagatna. It was the center for government. It was the center for the community to come together and celebrate, and for markets and things like that. And then during the Second World War, it was completely destroyed when the U.S. forces retook Guam away from the Japanese. And it just kind of stayed that way for a long time. All the residents fled Hagatna during the war, after the war, and most of them did not return. Much of the historical sites were destroyed, and so it just kind of did not develop for 75 years. And then in 1996, a group of businessmen came together, the leaders of the community at the time, the Leon Guerreros, the Calvos, the Shimazus, and said, hey, we need to rebuild our capital city. And they started a nonprofit. And a year or so later, a law was passed creating the Hagatna Restoration and Redevelopment Authority in 1997. And our mission was to restore Hagatna, redevelop Hagatna, protect and promote our historical monuments and our Chamorro culture, develop affordable housing to attract residents back to Hagatna and to create economic opportunities, bring back business to Hagatna.
Yeah, I know there's been some partial redevelopment, if you will, of Hagatna in the ensuing years. We have the beautiful Guam Museum. We have the restoration of the Guam Congress building. We have the, I guess, the tearing down of the eyesore that was the old administration building. So some work has been done. It has been, nice to see, actually. But you've got in this plan some much more elaborate projects or things that you need to be built. So tell us a little bit about some of the highlights of the plan.
Yeah, we have an archive of projects that have been proposed from different agencies, from the past, their present projects. We've compiled all of the projects that were proposed into an archive, that take place in Hagatna. And we actually have a subcommittee here at the authority that's reviewing all the projects, trying to determine what our short-term projects should be, our midterm projects should be, our long-term projects should be, and how we're going to help finance them, and which agencies we're going to partner with, and who's going to take the lead on the project. Hopefully we'll have a report submitted to the governor by the end of the second quarter on what the board thinks the priority project should be. And there are so many different projects. One of the priorities is the flood mitigation study. We have projects to expand the Heritage Trail. We have a project to develop Paseo into the center of entertainment for the community. There's a project to reintroduce the barrios, which were the different neighborhoods here in Hagatna prior to the war. I believe there were 18 barrios, and each barrio was a neighborhood, and each neighborhood had its own little church and name.
In Full Zoom is presented by Calvo Enterprises, Inc. and IT&E. GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information. In Full Zoom is presented by Calvo Enterprises, Inc. and IT&E.
Yeah. As I understand, sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Yeah, as I understand it, a lot of it was, and I've seen the plans from previous, HRRAs, but it's centered around what the Spanish did in all of their conquests, their colonizations, and they had like the center plaza, like we have the Plaza de España, which then surrounded by the church, and then an administration building. Is it gonna the plan still gonna follow some of that?
We do have a few projects to build administration buildings where the former administration building was. There's a proposed project to, once the federal prison and the police lockup is relocated to another site. Yeah, to build another office there for some government agencies.
Yeah.
The government of Guam owns so much property here in Hagatna. It only makes sense that we utilize those properties to build our own office buildings. We could be saving millions of dollars in rent.
Yeah. And so the office buildings for the Gov of Guam is part of the plan. Also, from what I saw previously, there's the marina, or like a boardwalk marina or something like that.
Oh yes. The plan proposes that we create 4 different districts in Hagatna. The waterfront district, going all the way from Adelup all the way to Alupang, and developing a boardwalk where people can walk. It's pedestrian friendly. They have access to the ocean. We can develop retail along the boardwalk. You know, so people can just really get out there and enjoy the city and enjoy the natural resources that we have here along the coastline. Another one of the neighborhoods is the government district, you know, centering around Plaza de España and concentrating all the government agencies and buildings around that area. Then we have the Riverwalk District, which follows the Hagatna River from the mouth of the river, going all the way up to the pool area, and then up towards behind the Hagatna Shopping Center. And then we have the residential district, which is more towards Anigua, where we hope to develop mixed use retail residential type of structures.
Yeah, and as you mentioned earlier, the idea is to bring people back into the capital city, where it once a thriving, bustling place. Now, not that many people live in Hagatna, and certainly not compared to the percentage that lived back in the day, right?
Correct. You know, after 5 p.m., Hagatna is pretty quiet.
Yeah. And so another theme that I understand is part of this plan is to make it more of a walking district. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, there's a whole chapter in the master plan that focuses on making Hagatna more pedestrian friendly, more bike friendly, expanding sidewalks, constructing bike lanes, places to park bikes. What else? Bringing in more street vendors and like food trucks and things like that.
So it's a place that the family can really, you can bring your family to and enjoy our capital's, everything our capital can provide. Yeah.
Yes, if you were here during FestPac, then you'll have a sense of what the environment that we're trying to create. I don't know if you remember during those 2 weeks when there was just, everyone was walking around Hagatna, visiting the museum, you know, picnicking in Skinner Plaza. They were at Chamorro Village or down at Paseo, enjoying the water, canoeing. We really want it to be an exciting, vibrant city, not just for the tourists, but for the locals.
Yeah, that did. Thanks for mentioning that, the FestPac, because it did have that certain vibe to it. This made it much more, a place to go to. It just had that unique vibe. So you mentioned hotels and a cruise ship harbor. Those are kind of on the back burner. How are you going to prioritize what's going to come first? Will it be cost? Will it be, I don't know. Is that going to be determined?
Well, we do have a subcommittee. We're looking at all these different factors right now. We're going to look at short-term, mid-term, and long-term projects. You know, constructing a building is going to take 5 years, so we have to have little wins in between. And every administration is going to have their own priority as well. So things are going to move up the chain or down the chain. It depends on who's up at Adelup and funding as well. You know, we're looking towards grants and federal money to fund a lot of the projects. Yeah. Some of the short-term projects that we're hoping to launch this year are like community events and festivals, and we have we're launching in April the first annual Serena Festival.
Oh, tell us more about that.
So this is something we've been trying to do, but because of COVID, you know, when creating the master plan, there were a whole bunch of guidelines that we were looking at, guiding principles. So every single project has to at least incorporate one of the or two of these principles. And one was, you know, reestablishing Hagatna as a capital city, encouraging a vibrant downtown. And so we came up with this Serena Festival to help celebrate our local legends, our storytelling, you know, how Guam is a matrilineal society. So it's very, very female empowering. And Hagatna is the home to Serena, so it's only natural. We have Serena Plaza here. People come down and see the statue of Serena. Another story is the story of the women that wove their hair together to save Guam from the giant fish that was eating away. That happened in Hagatna. So our goal is April 7th, Saturday, April 7th. So it's also Mother's Day weekend. So we're going to have a fishing derby, a women's fishing derby. And that's sponsored by Shut Up and Fish Guam. We're going to crown the first annual Serena Queen. And that's open to women of all ages, 18 or over. If they're interested in competing for the Queen, they can call us here at HRA and get more information on that. We're having a costume contest. We're also having an art contest. We've reached out to all the schools across Guam. And we'll have, they have to paint or create a picture of Serena or a piece of art about Serena. We have prizes for all the different ages and categories. Department of Agriculture will be bringing down plants to display, and the cocoa bird to show everyone. We also have Fokai will be coming down and doing slingshot demonstrations. We'll have food trucks, vendors, artist vendors. KAHA organized a Serena exhibit. Unfortunately, we were supposed to have the festival in March during Mes Chamorro, but because of COVID, we had to move it. But that exhibit is up right now at KAHA. It just opened yesterday. So, people can still go down there for the entire month and go see all the submissions. What else are we having? We're still developing some other things. Oh, there will be a heritage walk. The Guam Preservation Trust has teamed up with EOG. People will be able to start at Skinner Plaza and get a map and walk around Hagatna. And at each heritage stop, there will be students there that can tell them the story about the significance of that particular site.
Wow, that sounds like a great event. Thanks for mentioning it, Lasia. Appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome. We haven't really announced it because we kept having to move the date. So you're getting the scoop on this.
All right, thank you.
In Full Zoom is presented by Calvo Enterprises Inc. and IT&E. GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information. In Full Zoom is presented by Calvo Enterprises Inc. and IT&E.
So obviously this is going to be done in phases over a long number of years, as you alluded to. What do you think is going to be the biggest challenge going forward? Is it going to be, as it always seems to be with government projects, the funding?
Well, we're trying our hardest to look towards seeking out funding from grants and things like that, federal funds to help us push the projects along. Of course, I think that's always going to be an issue. But right now, we're really, really excited and hope that the legislature approves the rules and regulations, because the projects are going to happen, with every administration. They're going to pick and choose a project. But if we don't have these policies and rules and regulations moving forward, there's going to be a lack of continuity in the design of the city. We have 3 transportation hubs that we want to develop, and it's highly unlikely that all of them are going to be built in the same 4 years. So if we have one that's created by one architectural firm using all the different materials that they want, and then another one a few years later using different materials, and then further on down the line another architectural firm using whatever they want, then we're going to have a hodgepodge of a city. And the goal is to develop Hagatna so that it has its own unique sense of self that really reflects our culture and our history. And these policies, this master plan, land use plan that we've submitted to the legislature defines all those rules and policies and regulations. Protecting our view shed, that's one of the policies. And you know, we have an issue, a challenge right now in one of our other villages where we have an iconic you know, symbol that's could be damaged by a development that's going to change the view shed of Two Lovers Point, you know, which is on our Guam flag. So hopefully this will be the template that all the other villages also look at to help them create their own master plans and rules and regulations for development in all the other villages.
Yeah, so these rules and regs, as I understand it, will govern things like, you know, height, how tall a structure can be, what kind of structure or materials will be used. Can you elaborate more?
Yeah, well, we look at, there are different chapters within the design guidelines and regulations. We look at rights of way, what the streets and the sidewalk zones are going to be, benches, bike racks, bollards, planters, you know, mostly in the public areas. We look at, there's a whole chapter on landscaping, what type of vegetation that we use. We want to only use indigenous vegetation, how paving, walls and fences are. There's a whole chapter on the parks and plazas and safety and architectural design, which way the building faces so that it contributes to the design of the city, the mass and the form and articulation of the building. If there's a public area, you know, that's a part of the building, it has to be, you know, in align with the design. We have different building styles for the different districts. You know, in the government district, we want a uniform style for the government buildings. In the waterfront district, we want like a uniform style for all the structures facing the ocean. Roofs, we have recommended designs for the roofs. Site design is very important because we want to protect the view shed of our historical, you know, sites. Parking is another thing that we tackle. Service areas, loading docks. We don't want loading docks facing the street. They're unsightly. They should be hidden. Trash receptacles where they should be in the city. What the Riverwalk District structure should look like. Signage, we're looking at things like that.
Yeah, it sounds very, very comprehensive. Let me ask you, will the public still have input going forward?
During the public hearing, you know, it's open to the public. They can come in and give their comments, or written or oral comments. The plans are online. They've been online for several years for people to see at hagatnamasterplan.com. In the early stages of the development, there was a lot of public engagement. We had several open houses where people came in and gave all their comments. And we actually built the master plan based on a lot of those comments.
In Full Zoom is presented by Calvo Enterprises Inc. and IT&E. GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information. In Full Zoom is presented by Calvo Enterprises Inc. and IT&E.
All right. But will they have any public, say for a particular project is coming up, will they have input then, or that's pretty much going to be settled at the time of this, when this master plan is accepted?
Oh no, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. For every project, of course, we'll go through the same processes, of approvals with the commission. There will be public hearings. It's not a vacuum. And I think it's important that there is a chapter in the master plan that talks about community engagement. and making sure that the community has input. And it's not a static plan. And one of the policies is that it's updated every 5 years.
All right, let's just wrap this up, and I'll ask you, why is this important? Why should we restore and redevelop our capital city?
Nestor, I think it's very, very important because it's been a long time. It's been 75 years, since our city was destroyed. And there hasn't been much development to entice the people back. If we don't have these plans and policies, like I said, development will move forward. It can move forward. We can't stop it. But if we can guide the development, if we have the rules and regulations that protect our historical sites, that protect our historical view sheds, if you compare it to what happens on the other side of the fence, and I'm talking about the military fence, there are a lot of advocates out there that are very vocal that there's damage and destruction that's happened to our historical sites. We don't really have much say in that. But if we have a plan that protects those sites and our culture and history, we're being proactive. We have control on this side of the fence. This is the first step when any developer comes to Hagatna. They will get these guidelines that say, this is what you can do, this is what you can't do, and you have to build according to this. This protects our history, and that's being proactive. That's actual planning. That will perpetuate the continuity of what we're trying to do. We're not trying to build a strip mall looking city. We want a city that really, really incorporates the identity of the Chamorro people, our history, our culture. It protects it, it promotes it, and it preserves it, for everyone to come. We want Hagatna to be the cultural, historical destination. Tumon is the sun, the sand, and the sea. Come and relax there, but come to Hagatna to learn about our history and culture. And I think GVB is on board with that. I read an article yesterday with Governor Carl talking about how important it is of our culture that's going to attract, when we open our gates again, our doors again to tourism.
All right, we are out of time. Thanks. Lasia Casil is the director of the Hagatna Restoration and Redevelopment Authority. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Nestor. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
All right, I'm Nestor Licanto. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you again next week on In Full Zoom.
In Full Zoom is presented by Calvo Enterprises, Inc. and IT&E.